The wave of Arab revolution has swept from North Africa to the Kingdom of Bahrain. But unlike Egypt and Tunisia, the Bahraini army brutally suppressed peaceful protest. Now questions are being asked of Britain's role in arming and training its former colony. Does Britain have a case to answer?
Still, their relation with Britain is very, very strong, especially the current king, Hamad bin Isa.
The finances of the country are very much a part of the big picture that's overseen from the Treasury and the Bank of England in London. The military and political and intelligence cooperation remains acute.
Both the UK and the US have had a very strong hold over Bahraini politics, its future, its policies. It's a strategic base. It's got huge oil wealth.
Manama, Bahrain. Inspired by the wave of Arab revolution, pro-democracy campaigners marched towards the Bahraini army and meet a brutal response. Now questions are being asked of Britain's role in propping up the repressive Bahraini regime. Only a week before demonstrators were killed on the streets of Manama, the Bahraini Prime Minister bought this £43 million house in central London. Now it's clear the Bahraini royal family feel at home here. But is their relationship with Britain just too close for comfort? Britain has many historic links to the region, doesn't it?
Britain is the one who kept it in the hands of Al Khalifa for the last 200 years. They always went and support this clan by many treaties, and they kept this ruling family against the wish of the people and against all values which Britain believes in. And of course, Bahrain took its independence from the British in 1971, so it's very recent, but still their relation with Britain is very, very strong, especially the current king, Hamad bin Isa.
How cozy is the relationship between the British establishment and the Bahraini royal family?
It's very close. In banking, for example, and Bahrain's wealth is to a very large extent based on banking. That banking is governed by the Bank of England. The finances of the country are very much a part of the big picture that's overseen from the Treasury and the Bank of England in London. The military and political and intelligence cooperation remains acute. The personal relationships between Old Etonian and Sandhurst Tory ministers and the Crown Prince of Bahrain is well known. Once when I was attacking the Crown Prince of Bahrain in a speech in the House of Commons, the Tory minister, Sir Nicholas Soames, said that I was being very harsh, and he knew the Crown Prince very well. He'd gone to Eton with him. That's how close. These people are part of the same nexus of Britain's old colonial old boys club. But their time's running out. By the grace of God, they are not much longer to be ruling over that stricken nation.
Is Britain complicit in any of this?
Britain has had a long history with Bahrain. It was the colonial power. It has really kind of kept the Khalifa family in its pocket after independence, which is only sort of 40-odd years ago. And subsequently the US has been involved. They've based their Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. And both the UK and the US have had a very strong hold over Bahraini politics, its future, its policies. It's a strategic base. It's got huge oil wealth, which is bound up in so much of the narrative in the Middle East. Britain itself has been very complicit in the sense that not only has it supported the regime verbally and financially and so on and so forth, It's even been very involved in terms of training its security forces. So you will find that a lot of the atrocities that have been committed by the police and security services over this last 40 years in Bahrain have been done under the guidance of British trained personnel, notably Ian Henderson.
Britain's military links to Bahrain are close. Even the Bahraini king was trained at the elite Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, along with many of his army officers. You've paid a personal price for your involvement in this organization as a member of the opposition. What's happened to you?
Every Bahraini has paid a price, varying in degree. Some people paid the ultimate price of being killed in the streets, as recent as 4 or 5 days ago with the latest addition to the list of martyrs, Rida Abu Hamid. And those people who were killed in the 80s were numerous. And in the 90s, we had about 40 in the 90s, and either under torture or through extrajudicial killing in the streets. And now in the latest revolution, we had people killed and more than 500 injured in the clashes, in the attacks, not clashes, but attacks by the riot police and the special forces on the demonstrators. My personal experience has been similar to many. Of course, being in the leading role, I would be targeted all the time. I have always been targeted with media smearing campaigns, with accusations of unfounded claims that I had been planning to overthrow the regime or dealing with foreign bodies and foreign governments. This has been going on since 1980, when I was first accused of the involvement in the internal troubles. So I had problems. I had been charged several times. I was sentenced in absentia in 1996 and accused of belonging to terrorist organizations. In this country, in UK, I was held and arrested because of the encouragement of the Bahraini government, especially at the time of the British Colonel Ian Henderson, who had established the special branch and systematized the torture practice in Bahrain. And then lastly, I was involved, or I was implicated in the most recent claim that there has been a coup plot and sedition and communication with outside bodies 6 months ago. So anyone who puts himself in a direct challenge to dictatorships will always find himself or herself targeted by them.
Is Britain complicit in any of this?
It is not easy to establish the direct role of the British in Bahrain in these days. Of course, in the past, we know that they have had good relations with the regime for 150 years, between 1820, when they signed the first anti-piracy treaty with the Gulf sheikhs, including Bahrain, until 1971, when they departed and left the region. We know that in 1966, the late Sir Anthony Parsons, who was later to become the UK ambassador to the United Nations, and who was at some time the ambassador to Tehran and also the political agent in Bahrain, he was the one who employed Ian Henderson and brought him from Devon to Bahrain to establish the special branch, which became flagrant in its treatment of Bahrainis and institutionalized torture as a means of dealing with the dissidents. So this goes back to some time ago, but Henderson was there until 2000 when he retired. But we also know later and until now, our belief is that there are many experts and consultants who work behind the scenes in various ministries in Bahrain.
Colonel Sir Ian Henderson was knighted for his service to the Bahraini secret police. Now his brutal methods are an embarrassment to the British government. Former MP George Galloway has campaigned against Henderson's secret role for decades. What did the British government know about Colonel Henderson's activities in Bahrain?
Oh, well, they knew everything. I mean, Bahrain was ruled by the British until 1971, which is after the Beatles split up. I mean, it's not exactly ancient history. The British involvement in Bahrain, and indeed elsewhere in that region, continued after the flag was run down. And of course, people like Henderson were in place partly as agents of the British. I'm sure that their wages were being paid by the Bahrainis, but they were, of course, reporting back to the British, and they were keeping Bahrain safe for British and later American imperial interests. So the British could not in any way claim that they did not know the kind of man that Colonel Ian Henderson was, because, of course, he had been that kind of man in their employ, ferociously torturing Kenyan prisoners who were doing no more than fighting for the independence of their country.
So why is nothing being done? I mean, he's allowed to live in cozy retirement.
Yes, I don't know if he's in England or in Bahrain. I heard a day or two ago that he's back in Bahrain, which surprised me a little. And if he is, I very much doubt if he's sitting out these current events. I'm sure that he'll be whispering in the ear of the dictatorship there in Bahrain. But if he is back in England, he's clearly here with impunity, and he ought to be on trial. We changed the law in Britain so that we could prosecute people who committed acts of torture and other acts against humanity in foreign countries. And if there was ever a candidate for such a trial, it would be Colonel Ian Henderson.